Welcome back to the channel. Dublin will be one hell of a lively place this evening as Ireland go on to retain their Six Nations Championship title over Scotland in a strong performance, a gritty performance against a Scottish team which really didn't want to lie down. They didn't make it easy for Ireland and took the game right down to the wire. But fair play to Ireland. They showed their grit, they showed their mettle when the times get tough under the leadership of Peter O'Mahony, who has potentially hinted at this being his last game. And if it is, what a servant he has been to Irish rugby. And he showed his importance to this Irish team in this game today. Full commitment, wore his heart on his sleeve as always, and played in his gritty, his strong, his rough and rugged style that he's been known for. Plays with so much emotion. He really does bring everyone else around him into the battle, into the war that rugby can sometimes be. So fair play to him, fair play to this Irish team. Congratulations to all the Irish fans out there. After a tough defeat in the World Cup, this Irish team has bounced back. They had a little blip against England, but comparing them to the other teams in the Six Nations competition, the consistency of performance, both in attack, defence, and their whole game as a whole has been far and beyond the rest of the competition this year. So fair play to all the Irish fans out there. Please do let me know how you plan on celebrating and how you're feeling right now. But well deserved from Ireland, and they can really grow and build as a team from here on in. In this video, I'm just going to be reflecting upon the game, some key talking points, talk about a couple of the key performers, and so please do let me know your thoughts on the game as well. So I'm going to start off with how the game started. It was quite a nervy start from both teams. I remember James Lowe got charged down by Andy Christie, I think it was, who had a good game for Scotland, and Ireland sort of realised at that point that this isn't a game that we can take lightly. It's a game in which we're really going to have to work for. Those small little errors at the start of games could just really switch you on. Ireland were obviously anticipating a real tough game, but it's just as soon as you get into the game and one thing doesn't go your way, it just changes the mindset of the whole team of we've really got to pay attention to the key details. And I think that was one of the key points in which just mentally turned Ireland on. There's a lot of physicality early on, lots of kicking, neither team wanting to massively overplay in their own half, which made for not the most entertaining rugby in patches. I think the pragmatic approach of putting boot to ball sometimes was preferred. However, Jack Crowley, particularly in some really nice attacking position for Ireland, didn't quite get the execution of his kicking game off as well as he would have liked. But when Ireland had so much possession in the first half especially, well, throughout the game as a whole really, it can be difficult sometimes to know what to do when you have so much possession. You don't always want the ball, you only want the ball in a good position, so Ireland did have to forfeit some possession for field position in the game. Ireland did open their account relatively early on through the try of Dan Sheehan. He always finds his way to the try line in these games. He's absolutely brilliant. He just has a sort of a magnetic attraction to the try line. Every single game he seems to find his way there, and it's become a familiar name to see on the score sheet. This was simply from an overthrow from a Scottish line out. If you're Scotland, one of the key messages before the game would be just don't let Ireland have easy ins. Don't give them the platform to score points so easily, and unfortunately they made that mistake. Maybe going up at the front of the line out would have been a better decision to stop the sort of risk of an overthrow, but they tried it, and Dan Sheehan, it wasn't an easy try to take. He took the ball well above his head, composed himself nicely and got to the try line, so good stuff from him. Finn Russell of Scotland kicked some penalties early on to keep Scotland sort of in the game. He kicked a couple penalties which was keeping the scoreboard ticking, and it did put Ireland under a little bit of scoreboard pressure, especially as the Irish weren't able to break down the Scottish defence as easy as they would have liked. But decent start for both teams, and neither team really getting the upper hand in what was quite an arm wrestle. And then in the second half, well, we went to half time at 7 points to 6, so relatively low scoring, and then the try in the second half came from Porter. There was a bit of a deadlock at the start of the second half. Crowley kicked 3 points to keep the scoreboard moving, but in terms of the Irish mindset, it was rather, let's not kick 3, let's really take Scotland on. And as much as this is a strategy in which can be frowned upon as, well, if this backfires and we lose possession, then we've just squandered 3 points. But I think Ireland saw this slightly differently. They saw this as an attritional approach, thinking, well, we might not have scored on this go, but we're going to wear down this Scottish team so much through our physicality, through being relentless, that ultimately it's going to pay off. And that is exactly what happened through the try of Andrew Porter. I just think we need to give this man a lot of credit. Not many props can stay on the pitch for 60, 65 minutes, let alone be the chosen member of the Irish four-pack to carry the ball from 5 metres out from a tap play and score. Let me just repeat that one more time. 65 minutes in to an elite level test match, you've got a loose head prop who's been scrummaging, who's been doing all sorts of things, has now found his way to the try line from 5 metres out. It's just brilliant stuff from Andrew Porter. One of the best loose head props in the world. And when we are comparing him to other loose head props of the South Africans, the French props, you need to remember that not many props play as many minutes as this man. So he deserves a huge amount of credit. And got his props in the game. He got a bust up here, got blood all over his face. So looked pretty cool in the after photos. Although he did seem like he wanted to get it cleared up. But yeah, brilliant stuff from Andrew Porter. In terms of Crowley, his contributions from the tee were useful for Ireland. He did miss a penalty in which was relatively central, pulled it towards the left. I'm slightly undecided of where I sit in terms of Crowley's goal kicking. He can have absolutely wonderful games, and he can also have games where he's quite poor. This game was neither. He did decent. He wasn't bad. He wasn't particularly amazing. But I would like to see, in terms of a tournament as a whole, a little bit more consistency from Crowley. But he's definitely not a bad option off the tee for Ireland. And then Scotland, they did get a try in the second half through Hugh Jones, 70 plus minutes in, I think it was. It was quite late on in the game, which narrowed the gap to 4 points in the last couple of minutes for Ireland to hold on to. But it never seemed like they were going to lose the game. There was plenty of daylight in terms of how many metres there was towards the try line for Scotland to gain, and yeah, they never really looked like scoring late on. So relatively comfortable for Ireland to see out in the final minutes, but that try definitely did make it a little bit interesting going into the last few minutes. And when you're going to win the Six Nations title, do you really want it to be by 10, 15 points and an easy looking scoreline? You don't. You want to win it, and you want it to be a real tough test, and that was exactly what Ireland were given. In terms of what both teams did well, let's start off with the Irish. Their line-out was improved, not perfect, but it had improved, and that was one of the inlets in which Scotland would be looking to disrupt to get into the game. Ireland and Dan Sheehan tightened up this area, which was good. The scrum was absolutely phenomenal from Ireland. They gave away a couple penalties here and there for on the Scottish feed, I think it was, but on the Irish feed, just brilliant, pushing Scotland all the way off the ball, winning penalties, not through technicalities of dropping an arm or whatever, but no, they dominated. They went through the Scottish scrum, made them pop up, and won a penalty in the old traditional way of really dominating the set piece. In the second half, they definitely took Andy Farrell's instructions to be more direct. They came out with a real sense of purpose, and although they weren't super clinical, they're not the Irish team that were clinical with every single 22 entry. That was due to the weather, the greasy ball, the conditions, but they did show a massive eagerness to carry that ball directly, to go through the heart of the Scottish team and to effectively demoralise them. And Ireland were very effective in their ball carrying around the fringes of the ruck, although Scotland were not letting them gain too many yards, and it was a real tough fight in there. Great defence from Ireland and jackling as well. When you look at the scoreline and you see Scotland scored only late in the second half, and Scotland never really looked like scoring other than that, then that deserves a lot of credit, and that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of buy-in from everyone in the defence, so Ireland deserve a lot of credit for that. I think another key thing for the Irish was resilience. They had many opportunities to score where things didn't quite come off. There was the Tyg Furlong knock-on. That was a potential try. Me personally, I thought that was a try. It's one of those things, if that was given on-field try, it stays a try. If it's given on-field no try, then it'll stay no try. A tough decision. Me personally, if I hadn't have made an on or off-field decision and you just showed me the video, that's a try. That there's not clear separation. He's got somewhat downward pressure on it. There's no clear loss of control. That's a try. Let's reward attacking rugby. However, it wasn't given as a try, and that meant Ireland had to show real guts and resilience. They could have kicked 3 to take the outside of the 7-point margin, but they decided Tyke Byrne, Conan, I think was on the field at the time, Doris, we can do this. We can really take on the Scottish team up front, and we can deliver the 5 and 7-pointer. And within about 30 seconds of me discussing with my dad whether that was the right decision, they'd scored, and Matthew Carley's arm awarded the try. So really good resilience there from the Irish. Negatives, I would say the execution at times was a little bit poor, close into the line. But when you're in a Six Nations deciding game, it's always going to be tough. You always kind of struggle to get over the line, and that's part of it. So maybe embrace it and think, this isn't massive negative. Scotland weren't getting over the Irish line, so it wasn't too dissimilar. So a little bit of execution could do with a little bit tightening up. Maybe some Crowley kicking infield could have been a little bit better. There was quite a few 22 dropouts from Crowley, sort of overcooking his kicks. But I mean, I'm sort of nitpicking there. It was a very decent performance from Ireland. In terms of Scotland, defence of the goal line was exemplary, and they did implement quite a bit of scoreboard pressure on Ireland, especially when the scoreline was stuck at, I think it was 10-6, I think it was in the second half. They did really, really well to keep Ireland out, and I think there was elements of me thinking that Ireland aren't used to being repelled so many times. Could this take a detrimental impact on their mentality? I think it didn't, because obviously you see the scoreline, they were resilient enough to keep going. However, it was good from Scotland to be able to put them under that pressure, and if Ireland hadn't have been as resilient and as tight as a group of players, they would have cracked. They really would have. So good from both teams respectively there. Negatives, I felt Scotland played slightly not to win, but just not to lose. They just, I don't know, if I was to relate it to a boxer, they just had their guard up and they weren't throwing a lot of punches. They were just moving around the ring. I think that's a reasonable analogy to sort of sum up how the Scots played. They didn't chance their arm too much. They didn't hold on to possession when they had it. They often went boot to ball and looked to relieve pressure instead of trying to create pressure. There's pros and cons to both approaches, but I would have liked to see Scotland mix it up a little bit more. Discipline was also a problem, giving away quite a few penalties close to their line, which led to a yellow card. The scrum, discipline at the scrum was problematic, but Ireland was so powerful there, you have to give them credit as well. And then the fatigue ultimately set in on the Scots after making probably 3 times the amount of tackles that the Irish made, which is credit to the Irish as well. The standout performers for me, Josh van der Fleer, Porter and Jameson Gibson-Park, with Jameson Gibson-Park actually getting man of the match. Fair play to him, what a shift, one of the best 9s in the world, spots the space so well. Josh van der Fleer over the ball has been getting back to his old best, really good at the ruck, really difficult to play against, a real menace and a problem for the attacking teams. And then Porter, I've spoken extremely highly of him as well. An unbelievable loosehead prop for the reasons I've listed. I could probably add on to that list Peter Romani, not necessarily because it could be his last game, but the way he played was just sums up what you want from a captain. I think that's the best way of putting it. Gritty, emotional, powerful, and yeah, just a brilliant leader. For Scotland, my key performers were Andy Christie. I think he's quite a small back rower, but he threw himself around so much. Charged down James Lowe, made a couple breaks here and there, so I thought he was really good for Scotland. And then Hugh Jones as well for his try, his amazing step, deserves some credit for that, because yeah, that's not easy to do, especially against a really good Irish defence. But those are just my points. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What did you think of each team's performance? And what do you think of the campaigns as a whole? Scotland's been up and down. Ireland have had a very good tournament, a little blip in there, but have responded quite nicely. And how do these games set each team up for the summer tour, which will be very exciting later in the year? But yeah, that's it from me. I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. I've got a video coming out tomorrow around the player performances from this game, scoring them individually. So if you're interested to hear that, please do stick around, leave the video a like and subscribe. And yeah, congratulations to all the Irish fans. I'm sure you'll sleep lovely tonight. Maybe a little bit hungover in the morning, but really do soak all these times up. Enjoy them, as Grand Slam, Six Nations alike, they don't come around too often. So fair play to you Irish out there. Congratulations on a brilliant tournament, and I'll catch you in my next video. See you later, guys.